The human mind's a very delicate thing, and we could see this most clearly expressed in Plato's Allegory of the Cave. The most interesting thing about the Allegory of the Cave is what it actually tells us about how people recognize things. It goes in depth on the fact that people recognize things basically only by what they're shown and only by what they know, and it's very shallow in terms of what they can actually believe. And it doesn't really take much for people to begin to believe things, and that's one of the things that Plato clearly expressed when he was talking about people being raised only to see one thing. Therefore, this should be the only thing that they believe, and it's the only thing that they recognize, and therefore their mind makes a link between what they see and what they know. And it's really strong link, and it's a very strong link. And basically what it shows us that the link between perception and reality in the human mind is very strong and could be easily formed just by sight.
Plato's message is that the truth, in actuality, is exactly what you believe it to be. A person's belief of the truth can only actually be based off of what you can understand or what you know. That's where shadows and light come in. Since they don't know the light exists, the shadows are their reality.
One example of how something that I perceived to be true was turned into something that really wasn't was, as a kid, I always learned that Pluto was a planet, and through discoveries of the gravitational pulls of its moon and the planet itself made it be classified not as a planet.
As we're exposed to only certain things, it's easy to imagine that people can believe illusions. We believe certain things that we're taught to be true, so why is it such an odd situation that people will believe illusions? If it's what they're taught, and if it's all they know, then they would have no choice but to accept it as reality.
Now, the issue with the fact that humanity's perception is so solid in terms of them believing exactly what they see or exactly what's placed before them is that when contradictory evidence is shown, usually the results can be quite shattering, especially psychologically. And it can even be seen, actually, this impact politically speaking, if we go back into history with the whole Earth-centric model of the universe. When the heliocentric model was introduced, the church couldn't accept it. They refused to believe that something so groundbreakingly different than what they already thought they knew or what they already thought was proven could actually be feasible. And so when they saw this and when they heard of this, they immediately took extreme action to try to silence these opposing viewpoints, which could ultimately disrupt a lot of things in their life. And you can even see that with people when they're going through their stages of grief. The fact that they refuse to accept things that have happened to them when things that have happened to them are incredibly tragic. They refuse to believe that these things have happened. The 5 stages of grief, I believe, is probably on the personal level the best way to really examine and observe this phenomenon happening, because we don't realize that this actually does happen on a daily basis. Think about the situation that you're put in as a human being, psychologically speaking, when you're challenged with the death of a loved one. Basically what happens is your mind believes that they're still there because you're so used to them being there, you're so used to their presence, so your mind seeks to reject it. And this can really be traumatizing, especially if you're a young child, but even to those who are older and those who are wiser, those who should know better. We see that this effect is still groundbreaking to their psyche, and the fact that it can affect them so much just goes to prove exactly what this illusion can do to somebody should it happen to not be true.
Based off of what he said, there are certain places in the world where ideologies are severely restricted. These could be the metaphorical caves in modern society into which people are imprisoned. In these caves, the only thing people know is exactly what they are told.
Historically, this can be seen in the late 1930s and early 1940s in Germany. The Nazi regime created propaganda in order to trick the general public into believing things that actually weren't true. The manipulation of what they taught the people to be was reality versus what reality actually was is a perfect example of what Plato is trying to teach us in his Allegory of the Cave.
Historically speaking, the American government is guilty of this as well, publishing false scientific studies about how the Japanese were subhuman. By the time the 70s and 80s hit, however, we saw the impact of this assumption when the Japanese began to dominate the tech market.
So why do we have elections? Why do we observe rituals and traditions based on our religion? The reason is because everyone has different beliefs. We are all brought up in different political parties. We're all brought up in different religious beliefs. So to parallel with the Allegory of the Cave, we're raised into believing things. And the people that came before us passed their own beliefs on to us.
These beliefs and traditions that were passed on to us have helped us form our own perceptions of reality. And it is through these very lenses of perceiving the world that we go on and that we create new perceptions and we share our beliefs with other people. It is through these perceptions that the world is actually formed. For without us perceiving things in certain ways, the world would be nothing like it is today. There would be no diversity and no differences in beliefs. For through these differences in beliefs is where the true beauty in human nature comes out. We are able to express ourselves in what we believe in, and in fact, we are able to share our own perceptions of the world and escape the caves that we are trapped in and be able to expand on what we believe in.